Hey, YouTube universe! Welcome back to the Naked Truth, yeah? Welcome back to the channel. I appreciate you dropping by. Not quite the bright, beautiful, sunny day it's been in New England the last couple days, but sun will be coming out later. So what are we going to do in between? We're going to listen to the great Clyde the Glide Drexler say that he was better than one Michael Jeffrey Jordan, all right? That's going to kick off a firestorm, of course, right? Now, look, Clyde Drexler was a great player back in his day. Unfortunately for him, he played when Jordan was at his peak as well. So I don't believe that Clyde Drexler is better than MJ, but let's see what we've got in store, all right? So we know how this works, kids. Before you bounce out of this video, if you don't make it to the end, do me one big favor. Whack the like button. That'll feed the analytical gerbils and just push this out to more people and give them the opportunity to look at it, all right? Anything other than that I find is a bonus. I would love to have your comments, suggestions, and of course, if I've earned it, would love to have you give Boris a little tap on the head and subscribe to the channel. All right, so let's just jump right into it.
Some of the greatest rivalries in NBA history include
Clyde the
Magic
Glide.
vs. Bird, Wilt vs. Russell,
Better than
Tracy
Jordan.
McGrady vs. the first round, and Shaq vs. Kobe, among others. But one of the least competitive rivalries, and really most one-sided rivalries, has to be Michael Jordan versus Clyde Drexler.
Just a quick stop right away. Is it really a rivalry when one side pretty much wins all of the time? You know, Celtics Lakers in the 80s, rivalry, right? Back and forth, champion, face each other, all that. That's a rivalry. But when someone's dominating another one, is it really a rivalry or is it just a beatdown?
And this so-called rivalry really took place in the late 80s, early 90s, where Clyde Drexler was viewed as the West Coast Jordan who was severely underrated. Now, while I don't think Drexler was on Jordan's level, him being underrated in that era is a pretty fair statement, as at his peak, he was a top 5 player, debatably top 3, who didn't get nearly as much credit as he deserved. As looking at peak Drexler, from 80 to 92, he averaged 24.8 points, 6.9 boards, 6.0 assists, 2.2 steals on 49% shooting.
Those are very respectable numbers, all-star level numbers, right? Good player, great player numbers. Let's see what Michael Jordan's numbers
And Drexler's Portland teams in that time period, they were some of the best squads in the West and in the NBA in general, as they were a perennial 50-win team, pushing 60 wins every single season.
Indeed.
And for 3 consecutive years, made the West Finals, including 2 finals appearances. And looking at Drexler individually, when it came to scoring the basketball, his best trait, 3 times in that era was top 6 in scoring, and also 3 times was top 6 in MVP voting.
An elite player, absolutely.
And as good as Clyde was, as underrated as he was, playing in the same era as Michael Jordan at the exact same position, by default, you're going to get overshadowed and kind of underrated. And Clyde, all these years later, really trying to rewrite history, saying he was extremely close to Jordan as a player, I don't buy. And looking at his actual words, he says compared to Jordan, he was bigger, faster, and stronger. All you can do with that quote is really just laugh.
You kind of have to laugh, and it really doesn't matter. You know, maybe Clyde was physically a little bigger. Maybe, I don't know. Faster? Who knows? We're not doing wind sprints up and down the court, boys and girls. That's not the way the game is played. So I don't care if he can run a 3.9 40. It's irrelevant in a team sport. The ball will always travel faster than any player can run. Stronger? Again, debatable. Mike seemed to be pretty strong to me. He worked in the post. He worked outside. He can move people. So, you know, this is just Drexler pumping up his own tires a little bit.
Because first off, this is basketball, not the Olympics.
Thank you.
We're not sprinting, high jumping, or lifting weights. Second of all, when it comes to being a confident player, a top 10 player, of course those guys' confidence is off the charts. But quotes like these, it's towing the line between confidence and straight up delusion. And again, I want to be clear, Clyde Drexler, he was a phenomenal player in that era despite being in Jordan's shadow.
Agreed.
And if you put him maybe 10 years prior to that in the 1970s, he's probably one of the best players in that era, remembered more fondly than he was in the 1990s.
But then he'd be compared to Dr. J more than likely, right? If he played a little earlier in the late 70s into the early 80s, he would have been there with the great Julius Erving. So what would have happened then? Would it be the same thing that he's facing with Michael? Maybe.
Because Michael Jordan, during Drexler's peak, was also in his own peak and performing at a much higher level. As from 88 to 92, Michael Jordan averaged 32.5 points, 6.6 boards, 6.4 assists, 2.8 steals on 53% shooting.
It's disgusting.
And unlike Drexler, won 3 MVPs, was 5-time All-Defensive, 5-time scoring leader, and a 1-time Defensive Player of the Year. I think you guys get the point. Clyde in the 90s was great, but for a modern comparison, he's like Kevin Durant to LeBron James, Dame to Steph Curry, and Embiid to Nikola Jokic. Of course, all great players, but one guy was simply greater and a notch better. And one more dig Drexler had at Jordan was saying MJ's stats-wise, he was only better because he shot the ball more. A pretty common attack on Michael Jordan, calling him a shot chucker or a shot jacker, who only put up high scoring numbers, but he took a ton of shots.
I don't care how many shots you're taking. If you're shooting 53.1% from the field, jack them up.
Never mind Jordan shooting above 50% for nearly half his career, and debatably been the best high volume scorer efficiency-wise behind Kevin Durant. Never mind that. And the one time Clyde actually came pretty close as he could come, to passing Jordan as the best player, actually being on Jordan's level, was 1992. And Drexler's Portland team that year, they were actually deeper than the Bulls, more experienced, more battle-tested, and I would argue, a more well-rounded team. And looking at the NBA media going into the series, the overall narrative was that Drexler was on MJ's level, and actually was more skilled and a better outside shooter.
Oh, Clyde Drexler says we're the 2 best in the game, but I'm not getting into a war of words with Mike.
Clyde was a threat. You know, I'm not saying he wasn't a threat, but me being compared to him, I took offense to that.
And that's what the greats do, right? The greats do that. They always look for something. Larry would say, hey, go find the scoring record in this gym. I need something to tweak me. I need something to go at. And Clyde saying, hey, you know what? We're the 2 best in the game. I'm just as good as you. Woo-hoo! That's all MJ needed to hear. All right, young fella. We're going to show you who's better.
I'm working for NBC. I'm covering the finals. So the night before game 1, we were at Michael's house playing cards, and he said, you know what's going to happen tomorrow. I'm going to give it to this dude.
Yeah, baby. I'm going to give it to this dude. I think this is where he goes off for a bunch of threes. Yep.
So he hit that first 3. And then here come the second one.
Wide open.
The third one.
Can you guard him? Put a hand up.
Michael didn't want anybody to have nothing over him.
So in game 1 of the series, what do you think happened? Of course, Michael Jordan took it personally and destroyed Clyde Drexler. As in the first half, put up 35 points, a first half finals record, made 6 3-pointers, had the shrug, and defensively held Clyde to 16 points on 5-14 shooting with 4 turnovers.
I could hit that shot
and
wide
if you
open.
look at the first 4 games of this series, when it was tied 2 games apiece, Jordan was outplaying Drexler pretty severely,
Not even
averaging
close.
34 points, nearly 8 assists, 5 boards on 51-38 and 91 splits. For the first half of the series, Jordan was definitely outplaying Drexler in all respects. And one thing I do want to highlight, despite Jordan playing fantastic in all areas, Portland started the series tied at 2-2 going to a Game 5 at home. This Game 5 in Portland was the biggest game of Clyde's career.
Thank you for saying that. That's kind of where I was going with that. All right, Clyde. You're as good, if not better, than Michael Jordan. Game 5. This is where you separate yourself and prove that point. Let's see if you do it. I know the answer.
To that point. And to Clyde's credit in this game, he kind of did show up, having 30 points, 10 boards, 3 assists,
Not
on
enough.
9 of 21 shooting.
Not enough.
Definitely pretty respectable. But when you're playing Michael Jordan, a guy of that caliber, 30-10-3 simply does not cut it. As in Game 5, Jordan, on the road, tied 2-2, had 46 points, 5 assists, and 4 boards on 61% shooting. If Drexler was actually better than Jordan, Game 5 at home was a time to prove it. And unfortunately for Clyde, he didn't do that. And looking at the last 2 games of the series, comparing Jordan versus Drexler, Game 5 and Game 6, Michael Jordan averaged 39.5 points, 4.5 boards, 4.0 assists on just otherworldly 57-57 and 88 splits.
Those are like NBA 2023 Xbox numbers, you know? It's like lighting up Madden football. Look at those numbers. Those are actual numbers that he put up, ladies and gentlemen, against Drexler and a very, very, very good Portland team. I think they were top 5, as a team defense that year. And he's putting up 40.
And looking at Game 6 in Chicago, to clinch the championship, the Bulls were down by as much as 17 points at home. But Jordan in the fourth quarter had a game-high 12 points, and the final minutes had a crucial layup on Clyde Drexler to push the lead to 4, and with under 10 seconds left, had the 2 game-icing free throws to seal the championship for the Bulls. And for the age-old narrative myth that Michael Jordan's finals competition was somehow weak, look at this Portland team. They had 6 players in double figures, nearly 7 with Danny Ainge.
It's a good team.
And you had Clyde Drexler, an MVP candidate, Terry Porter, an All-Star, Cliff Robinson, an All-Defensive member, 6th Man of the Year, Kevin Duckworth, an All-Star 91, and even Buck Williams, another All-Defensive player. And for the overall team, they ranked 4th in scoring, 3rd in defensive rating, and 7th
so I was right.
in
Top 5
offensive rating.
Defensive rating.
That Portland team was no joke.
Put 40
and what the
on
final series versus the Bulls really came down to is that Chicago had number 23 and Portland had number 22. As when a guy can average 35 points on 50-40-90 splits, it's hard to overcome that and win that series. And the fact Portland pushed it to 6 games, almost 7, is again a testament to how good they were and how great they were as an overall team.
Correct.
And looking past the 92 finals to the actual dream team, Jordan and Drexler were teammates on that roster. And according to many players, Jordan at practice routinely would abuse Drexler and just take him to school every single day.
Just mentally
And I don't
crush
know
him.
what you want to call it, psychological damage, mental dismemberment.
Yep.
But Drexler the next year had a noticeable decline in play and efficiency. As scoring-wise, he went from 25 points to under 20. Shooting percentage-wise, went from 47 to 43. Three-point-wise, dropped over 10%. And Portland as a team only won 51 games. Unfortunately for Clyde Drexler, the era he played in when he was drafted was in the same era as Jordan, who also played shooting guard. So all these years later, Clyde Drexler, claiming he was as good as Jordan, if not better. Again, Clyde, looking at the facts, looking at history, that was never the case and never will debate or a real rivalry.
Exactly.
As always, thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you next time.
All right, boys and girls, that was the great Clyde the Glide Drexler, thinking he's better than MJ. I think this video proved otherwise. I know MJ is better than Clyde Drexler, and I like Clyde. I think Clyde is a phenomenal player, and I enjoyed watching him play back in the day. So, let me know what you think below in the comments, boys and girls. Is he as good as MJ? Not quite there. 1A, 1B? You let me know, all right? But we know what we do. We don't want to make these any longer than these have to be, so we're going to cut it off right there. If you're still with me before you go, don't forget to drop at least that like, and I'd love to have your comments and your subscription, all right? So until the next NBA drop, the naked truth is out.